Tell Mac to turn on his camera. There it is. What's
I'm
going
here, my brother.
on?
What's good? What's good? What's good? Welcome, family. Welcome, family. Listen, you have just been invited and you just walked in the door. You just opened up to the best, the greatest podcast on your social media page. It's that time again for the Black and the Bold. Listen, here you will hear some thought provoking, gut wrenching, and yes, sometimes tear jerking content that you just can't get enough of. That's why you're here right with us tonight. But I'm the Bold. We're going to get things started off right. Brother Black, how you doing this week, my man?
Man, doing well. Ready to be back at it, man. We got some interesting topics that we're going to talk about tonight. But basically, as you always know, I'm holding it down for the black side. This is Black, Dwayne Johnson, otherwise known as, and just out of Valdosta, Georgia. Also, graduate of Lowndes County, Georgia Tech, University of Maryland. Got a few degrees there, and just coming back to do some business advocacy here in Valdosta, along with my wife and three beautiful kids, as we are owners of Bridge Builder Education Investments, which is our property management line there. Otherwise, we're just basically living in that financial independence lifestyle, investing in stocks, and taking it from there and see where it goes, man. Just loving life, loving growth.
Good deal, good deal, good deal. Hey man, listen. I'm gonna do something a little bit different tonight. I'm gonna let Beautiful go before me because I told her I was gonna turn over a new leaf. I was gonna be nice. I was gonna be cordial. So here you go. Good evening, Beautiful. How are you doing this wonderful Tuesday night?
Well, I am doing doing well. Surprised, but well tonight. A part of be of it all. This is like the last. Is this the last Tuesday? Yeah, this is the last Tuesday in this month. So just trying to embody. What I'm saying, what the America KKK has offered us in terms of celebrating Black history. But I'm going to take that to every single day of the year because, I love my Blackness. But I am Suzette Michelle, and I am a native here of Valdosta, Georgia. And just want to say hello. Hello to Shamani. Hi, my classmate is just logged on. So, yeah, I'm just excited to be here. Let's get this talk going because, we got three very in terminology here. If you see in our moniker for tonight, we want to know, like, can we have all three? Can we really have all three? That's what I want to know. So I'm ready. I'm interested to see what our viewers have to say tonight.
Okay, well, good deal. Good. We're glad to have you with us. We're gonna start this February. We're gonna end this February on a high note. We're glad to have you with us. And you're right. We have a very heavy topic that I think is really relevant tonight. And we're gonna jump right in. If you don't know who I am, you better find out. You better okay, never mind. I am the bold. My name is Edward Mack, also native of Valdosta, UCF grad. Undergrad was healthcare administration, master's was public administration. I now work in talent acquisition with corporate clients, and we also have finalized the information for our E3 Legacy Group, the first of several businesses that will be growing out of the family. So things are definitely rounding the corner with that. So I'm excited because I'm trying to find everything I can to get ready to write off for 2022. I'm already looking at my income
I know
tax check
that's
for
right.
2023. So yeah, but got a few things online, but I'm excited about having y'all tonight. Glad to be here tonight. Glad to be back. Good to see you, Nalita and Shamanti. Thank y'all so
Yep.
much for logging on. Thank y'all so much for being here. If you while you're here, go ahead and start that watch party
Hmm.
on your own page so we can grow the audience tonight because we got some good things to talk about. But I'm not
Yes,
going to
we
hold the mic too long. We're going to jump right in to our subject on tonight. So let's dig right in, crew. Suzette, tell me what you think about what we got to talk about tonight. Since
Oh
since we
man.
since we talk about our queens, yeah.
Well, yes, yes. So, the piece of the puzzle is, can we truly have integration, accessibility, and equity all at the same time? You know what I'm saying? Can we chew gum and walk at the same time? Really not in America we can't. So
Nah,
yeah, we're just trying to we're still chasing that white rabbit down a rabbit hole,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But yeah, I
I,
think that the latest current events has kind of temperature check that we cannot have all those three at the same time.
Well, I don't know, brother Black. What do you think about this whole situation before we dive into our main topic tonight? What do you think about it? I mean, we kind of opened it up a little bit last week, but the last show. But what do you think about? I mean, are all three of those available to us, or are these just pipe dreams that we're chasing, or what do you think?
Well, so far it's been a pipe dream. Just put it out there. I'm agreeing with Suzette that it's a struggle to have all three. The way that this country is built and designed, as far as the systems and the rules and regulations, and who are in elite positions, it's an uphill battle. And then, the most important thing to me is, if you can't access certain rooms, then you build your own house. But and I took that from somebody. Shout out to Eric Benson. He was one of my mentees, if you will, kind of unofficial mentee. He kind of said that to me at one point on his thought on what we're talking about. But yeah, we can't have access to all the rooms, and we're not getting equitable resources for the room that we're in. It's time to start considering building our own home. And with that, comes a responsibility to learn the trade, the skill set. So we're going to build our own home and build our own domain. We're going to have to learn, either learn how to do that effectively, to have the right structures and the foundations in place, or you're going to need to pull in people who have built houses before. That's one thing I don't think that our area locally realizes, is that we have personnel that are here locally within our region, but even more so in Lowndes County. We have individuals that understand how to build a house. And keep using that figuratively speaking, but if we want to start elevating our own domains collectively, that's the piece there that has to happen. We can't build anything by ourselves, individually. A lot of times we do things in stovepipe scenarios, and many of those don't necessarily circle back to a greater collective unit. And so that's one thing that you will probably see in the near future as we march forward with some initiatives out of the area that I'll be representing. But I'm thinking that we need to basically collectively work together, pull together our own resources, and at the same time educate ourselves from those that have done it before, educate ourselves beyond with partnership with those that are beyond our area, such as South Georgia, because quite frankly, South Georgia is limiting as far as educational opportunities when it comes to what we're talking about tonight, because the history of the South is intentionally limited for African Americans, so that we don't know how to build our own, and we're quite afraid to build our own. We're quite afraid to say black. We're quite afraid to say black in those areas that make us feel like, oh, we're going to lose our business, we're going to lose our constituents, we're going to lose our customers. I think it's past time that we need to stop acting like we're woke, stop acting like we're down for black business and working together and the culture and all that, when we're not even walking in the path to build our own, even more so just for strategy's sake. I mean, if we don't utilize our own, at least have it in place for the next generation in case something pops off. And I think that's kind of where we are at this point. We see a lot popping off. All this stuff going on that's reminiscent of Emmett Till, rest in peace. And we're seeing now, a resurgence of that even in 2022. So what are we going to do now? If not anything, we're just going to sit back, protest, and we're going to be in the same predicament as we were in 2020 with George Floyd, and nothing has changed.
Well, as always, you all know here at the Black and the Bold, we're going to give it to you raw and uncut. We're going to definitely give you our personal opinions. We're not trying to establish what the truth or what a lie is. We're just going to give our opinions and have the conversation tonight. So we do have a topic tonight a recent event that ties into our topic. that I'm not sure if all of you are aware of. But our sister Sha'Carri is back in the news again. And this time it wasn't her fault. This time, sis, it wasn't her fault. This time she wasn't tripping. This time she didn't, she wasn't going through a personal crisis. Actually, she came through uh, with a real argument. If I were to put it like that, I think she came with a real argument, and that argument simply is referring to. There was another young lady. We're going to pull up this clip. Her name is Camilla. I guess it's pronounced Valieva, and she actually benefited from a previous decision that actually harmed Sha'Carri. So, Black, you got that video, or do I need to pull it up? I got it. I got it already queued if need be.
Oh, go right ahead then, sir.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and usher it in once you pull it up.
All right. And if you would, we got a few people in the comments. Shamadi says she already agrees with her. I do too. I do too, sis. We're about to share this with y'all, so we can definitely get in because we want to see what y'all think about this. All right. Just going to make it full page. Oh, full screen, excuse me.
While he's pulling that up, basically one of the things that, we could share as far as, context specifically to Miss Richardson's tweet is that she noted, can we get a solid answer on the difference of her situation and mine?
Right.
My mother died and I can't. My mother died and I can't run, and was also favored to place top 3. The only difference I see is I'm a Black young lady.
Yeah.
So here's the video coming in, Brother Bold.
Is making claims of a double standard when it comes.
Oh, there it is. There go that DSL tripping again. I'm gonna back up. Could not get it to play. We're gonna try this again.
Is Dwayne able to, Brother Black?
Not really sure. He might be trying along with me.
I don't actually have the video that you have. I've just got basically a news report.
In response to U.S. sprinter Sha'Carri Richardson comparing herself to Olympic Committee skater Kamila Valieva after they both tested positive for a banned drug. IOC spokesman Mark Adams denied the accusations in a comment published by The Guardian, saying, quote, "You can't talk about double standards in relation to an American athlete. Each case is individual. Richardson's positive doping test was discovered on 19 June. The result was received before the start of the Olympics. She was suspended for a month. There is nothing in common between these two cases. Sha'Carri received a 30-day ban for smoking marijuana, causing her to miss last year's Summer Olympics. She claimed she had done it to relieve the pain she was feeling after her mother's recent death. Earlier this week, she suggested that this
might be all of it.
So if you want, we can definitely jump in even with that amount because that's similar to the report that I have, I think, from USA Today that gave more visual content to it. But basically what, as we already know, Sha'Carri Richardson is calling foul play just for the sake that, the other young lady, the skater, was found to have some positive substance in her test. But, contrary to that, what the IOC, the gentleman who was speaking there, the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, was saying is that Sha'Carri Richardson tested prior to the Olympics. And I'll go back to the USA Today report that I'm looking at here is that the main difference that they're citing is that it wasn't the IOC that banned her. It was the United States. And so because it was before the Olympics. So it was basically the United States that is responsible for Sha'Carri Richardson's ban during that time. Whereas the young lady that's skating, she is currently in the Olympics, and her test is pending, but it has been found to spark some attention by those that are studying her test. So that's what the technicality in difference is. When you're talking about the Russian skater, it would be in the interest of Russia, based on the report from USA Today, it would be in the interest of Russia to pull her out. But we know from just history lessons, Russia is not going to be that aggressive about their own athletes. If you ever saw Rocky IV, right? But nonetheless, it would mean more to Russia to keep her in, and Russia's not going to pull her out. As with the United States, we have strict rules, and you saw just how strict and controversial it was, because most states, marijuana is legal. So therefore, you have this uproar whether or not she actually took a performance enhancing drug. Let me add this last bit here of what I was able to find with regarding the Russian skater. She tested positive for, again, I'll try to pronounce this, but trimetazidine, which is a heart medication that's banned in the United States and prohibited under the World Anti-Doping Code. Now get this, the drug is used to treat heart conditions by increasing blood and oxygen flow to the heart. So she has a heart condition, that's positive for that, a heart medication that's banned. It doesn't really say in the headline whether she has a condition that is required of that drug, and I'll read more into it as we're talking about it. But the interesting thing when I read the excerpt there is that it is a drug that treats heart conditions by increasing blood and oxygen flow to the heart. Any athlete that you talk to, Brother Bold, you can understand this also. Any athlete that you talk to knows that if I'm able to increase blood flow and oxygen in my bloodstream, I have an advantage as far as, endurance, recovery, etc. So that's why this is interesting beyond the initial surface of the technicalities that the IOC wants to hinge on. So that's my little addition to the facts there.
I think I don't know, bro. I think with all that information that we have, I think they purposely play these games. All of this red tape and all of this gray area, and it's ridiculous. I mean, the Olympics have been around for how long? Marijuana and performance enhancement drugs have been around for how long? And so when someone takes, and then on top of that, they got more than one committee. Well, I guess more than one can actually halt or stop you from even participating. If it's not the IOC, then it's your country.
Yeah. Right.
And then they stand by their own little rules, kind of, in a way. I'm getting, because they called marijuana performance enhancement drugs.
Right.
But then they turn right back around and call, basically it does the same thing as arginine does. It raises that nitrogen level, which increases your blood flow, which increases your ATP output and all that stuff. So yes, it's going to make you run harder. It's going to make you jump farther. It's going to increase your stamina and your endurance and all of that. Marijuana doesn't do that. But this clear drug that we know she's taken, and she still gets to go. To me, Black, if you would share that, what I have on the screen there, if you don't mind. Because to me, it seems as if this is the real issue. I mean, we need to get a solid answer. It's 2022. There's more. I can't remember how many ways they can test to see if you have any foreign substances in your body. Can we? I mean, you're legalizing marijuana throughout the states, in the same country you're representing. But then now you got to play this red tape game about what state you're in when you're high, or, I mean, it's just becoming too much to kind of fizzle through. I mean, I don't know. It's ridiculous if you ask me, because I'm asking the same question she is. Because It seems like she's been given an excuse. oh, well, she's a minor, so she's a protected
Right.
person. What? So someone
It
who's
don't matter.
someone who's underage actually can take the drug that's illegal and still get it doesn't make sense. So I'm gonna have to repeat what Shakari said. Can we get a solid answer on the difference of her situation and mine? I want a solid answer, but I can guarantee you we won't get one. And if we get one, it's gonna be one so doctored up.
Yeah, it's gonna be so complex.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be weird. It's gonna be doctored up real good.
Yep.
To justify that situation, because they're not gonna back off. They're gonna allow that infraction to stay on her records. They're gonna allow it. They're not gonna make Valieva change. They're not gonna change her situation either.
Yep.
It's just another situation where that accessibility and that equity and all that stuff does not apply across the board. It applies on paper. I think that's the equity that America wants to give us. They want to give us the facade of equity on paper, because all these companies that are screaming they're equal opportunity employers, but when you look at their actual man count, who they have on staff, the majority of their minorities are Asians, Hispanics, Asian, Hispanic, or those that are directly from the African or Caribbean origin. And so, again, the equity, it exists on paper until we get in situations like this. Then they want to go line by line, precept by precept, to find out where we're wrong and where we missed the mark. So I don't know. I'm not surprised, but I would be surprised if they change anything they've done so far.
Yeah, you summed it up. That's the whole name of the game, brother. I mean, when you cry foul play, I'll be honest that the history of the criminal crying foul play does not work out well based on credibility. That's what they can argue, right? Then also, as you said before, stacking the deck with some complex, convoluted, docked up reason so that others don't really understand it. And by that time, the new criminal, the whitewashed criminal, has now floated by and gotten her awards. So I think the IOC is just trying to wash their hands clean of it and call it, the United States, put it in their responsibility bucket versus the Russian bucket. And clearly it's a slap in the face to all athletes that have done the right thing.
Do you all think that when these things happen like this, when it's a blatant disparity in treatment between different races, I'm just going to ask you an honest question. Do you all actually really think that this is being done on purpose? Or do you think out of the sheer ignorance of the people in these positions don't really think any further than their own interests? Because both could be true. Because we're still having these Black History lessons. We're still having these, there's some people that still don't know about Madam C.J. Walker, and they've been living in the country all their life. So they're still learning our history, truth be told. So do you think a lot of these situations like this, because it makes sense to us, but do you think this is a blatant disrespect or a blatant act of inequity to kind of, I guess, add fuel to the fire? Do you think this is intentional?
Well, it always is, to a degree, to your question. When you look at the context of the question in the total landscape of it all, we had I additionally think of the controversy here in Valdosta several years ago when the Valdosta City School was being built, the high school specifically. Black contractors and even groups that would represent them, if you will, in the advocacy lane, were in an uproar because Black contractors weren't necessarily selected as primary contractors. And again, I say that as a comparison because the counterparts to this will always hear and listen and sit back and wait for all of the protesting, all of the uproar to die down and don't really do anything to prepare us for the next go round of opportunity. So in that case, and again, forgive me for switching to, contracting side to make this analogy, but, what should have, or what would be the right thing, if we're talking integration, accessibility, and equity, is to properly educate those that had lost the opportunity so that they can, with equity, compete the next time. I think, the going conditioning that we see, especially in some areas, is that some people are very fine with the status quo, and they're not going to try to move that needle at all. And when we're talking about sports, I think that we can pull up countless athletes that fall victim to injury after football, losing their financial empowerment beyond football, lost all their millions, if you will. But what systematically is being done so that problem resolves itself? You can't have thousands of athletes go into the NFL or basketball and make me believe that they cannot learn any financial literacy for themselves. That's a problem. And that starts, again, it's all interconnected back to elementary, middle school, high school. And I'm just going to step on the toes here. A lot of athletes come out of this area and go to higher levels and then fall right back into our area because they don't know how to necessarily deal with financial situations. They don't know how to deal sometimes with mentally challenging situations because we haven't dealt with that. That's a mental illness, a mental health issue that we haven't dealt with properly here in South Georgia. So it's a number of things you can tackle with regard to this as far as that equity piece, being able to handle the opportunity. And I think we've got to do a better job, whether it's inside the family or outside the family, in order to make it better in the future.
Exactly. I totally agree that there is a twofold responsibility. Definitely it should start, the grooming process should start within the home first or within your community first, because what that struggle looks like. And then once you have been educated from your own people, then you're able to better combat the outside forces that play against that. But also, to your question, do I think, or does it seem very intentional when inequalities happens or discrimination happens? Does it seem very credible? Like, could they really be just that clueless, or are they doing it very maliciously? And unfortunately, from my vantage and viewpoint, living in the South, it seems to have a lot of intent, a lot of malicious motive behind it. The fact that they the counterparts that participate in that type of behavior, discrimination, and unfair, they use the ignorance of the social struggle as a excuse to, like, oh well, I didn't know, or I didn't feel that way, or that wasn't my intention. But this is 2022, so the entire world knows that Black Lives Matter. They know that it's a now. So maybe that could have halfway flow. Like, I don't really ever think it was an option, but maybe that could have been a kind of possibility, that they are totally clueless of the African American struggle in this country, but the entire world knows about the Black Lives Matter movement. So that the spotlight is on us, America, and the injustices here. So I do not buy in the fact that people are just like that, particularly clueless when they do something that's very discriminatory towards people just based merely on their color. Now, according to the Rolling Stones article concerning the Jakara Richardson versus the Russian ice skater, the board of arbitration for the Olympics said that they felt like barring the Russian skater would cause irreprehensible damage to her because she's 15 and she's not legally able to get her own drugs. So that was the band-aid that they, or the cover story that they put on there, why they felt like she should not have been barred as Miss Richardson should have been barred. So there's always kind of loopholes and explanations, but at the end of the day, when you're competing at an Olympic level and you've trained for that, like a window in there, you know what I'm saying? They're messing with their possibility. They may not ever get that window back again. Hopefully Miss Richardson will be back, after she's had that opportunity to really rise to the top of her game. But at this point, we'll never know, because she feels like, that really was a major setback for her. And she would have been performing at her greatest performance level, but that was snatched away from her. Some people feel like that opportunity was snatched away, and now we have that Olympic arbitration board showing grace to someone with performance enhanced drugs on board, and they're like, no, what I'm saying, that's gonna do too much damage if we bar her. So where's the line? The line keeps moving. And those of us in America know why the line is moving.
Yeah. I would have liked to have seen, some other, I don't know if y'all have seen any other athletes step forward and comment on this. So feel free to chime in on that, whether online or here amongst us three, because unfortunately, I find it odd and unfortunate that Miss Richardson is the one that's trying to be the poster child of this protest, if you will, softly saying protest. Because it doesn't hold a lot of credibility, as I said before. Even when when you added that she might get a second chance, she might has learned something. Because quite honestly, to kind of veer off into that area is that she spoiled her own pathway there after the Olympics. When she was terribly embarrassed by the Jamaican crew and everyone else on that track. So when beyond that, she commented on the Jamaicans, and she just never really seemed to have learned her lesson. So for her to say something yet again using a tweet, it looks very unprofessional, unfortunately. And I think that's where we've got to identify that sometimes we need a true leader to speak up, and not the one that is the boy who cried wolf, if you will. In this case,
I get it, and I agree with both of y'all. There is a level of responsibility on both ends, and we do have to take that responsibility on our end to make sure that we kind of control our narrative when we are faced with certain things like this. And me, I like to really cut through the fact that words mean things. Living in the country that we live in, we understand that there's a reason why we call ourselves a republic. There's certain reasons why we have certain words that we throw around. I just found out last night there are like 3 or 4 constitutions. So we have a lot of stuff that that we need to really take heed when they start using certain words. And so when we start looking at equity by itself, when we're looking for equity as people of color, whether you call yourself Black, Negro, African American, whatever it is that floats your boat, equity by definition, excuse me, basically is just a return to the shareholders, making sure that there's an equal share or equal return, excuse me, that's returned to the people who actually have invested in that particular company, or we're going to use the term the way it's actually used. But if we look at equity in its application, I think that's where we have to ask the question, have we already gotten equity? And I'm just playing the devil's advocate. But if we look at Adams' equity theory, there's something called Adams' equity theory. And actually with this, he calls for a fair balance to be struck between employees' inputs, their hard work, their skill level, their acceptance, their enthusiasm, and so on. He wants their inputs to to affect their outputs, which are salaries, benefits, intangibles such as recognition, and more. And what he says is, when people who are under organizations or employees, when they start focusing on their inputs, our efforts, our loyalty, our hard work, our commitment, our skill, determination, enthusiasm, when we do all of that, we should be getting in return recognition, reputation, responsibility, sense of achievement, praise, stimulus, all of that stuff. So, Beautiful, I got to ask you a question. According to Adams's equity theory and the definition, have we already gotten equity, or are we looking for more than what was agreed upon when we start talking about equity? Are we looking for special attention because we've got Asians that are part of the Olympics that have to follow those same rules? We got people from South America. We got people from all over the globe. Are we looking for a special spade when we don't have any more clubs or hearts? I'm just asking. I'm just asking because a lot of times, a lot of times we get beat up when they say we're doing the Victim Olympics when we start bringing up stuff like this. So help me understand. Have we already got it?
No, I don't think so. I think we've seen the promised land, but we haven't actually entered into the promised land. But I think that no, we're not asking for special treatment at all. It's just make sure that if the rule applies to me, that it applies to everybody else across the board. But
right.
Yeah, that's it. That's as simple as that. But unfortunately, multiple times and times again, we see that what rule applies to me can be relaxed, in the next scenario. So I think that's the problem with equity in this country. The line is very loose, and the scales of justice, they're never balanced. So no, I don't think that want special treatment. We just want equal treatment.
I can get with that, definitely. And I would just add to it, my opinion is that it goes back to, I think when we talked last time on this a couple of weeks ago, is that we've got to be not only stressing accountability from the counterpart side, but also be accountable for demanding what we need as far as equity. And I think that some of the problem is that we don't even know what we're missing. We kind of got into this last time as far as our thoughts with regards to the analogy of the appetizer versus the main meal. Us getting the appetizer or the leftovers, if you will, and not really knowing that there's an entree of options that we never even knew about. And I think sometimes we don't even fight for what we need as far as equity because we don't even understand what equity is. Mm-hmm. And that happens a lot of time in our community here, is that I think, and matter of fact, I'll bring it to an example, is that, I think it's cliche, but has some truth to it, that you all can help me out also, because this is just me saying it, that there are a lot of kids that are in certain areas of our town, like South Side, if you will, that have never stepped on VSU's campus.
Right.
Help me out if I'm wrong, but the fact is that, we've got a lot of people that don't even know what they're missing. We got a lot of businesses that don't even know, that there are contracts you can get in just about any line of business that you are servicing, whether it's obviously contracting, whether it's catering, whether it's, management. I mean, you can actually have a contract with corporations, with companies, entities, and be on a different level as far as your business. You could have a storage business, a trucking business, and really be at a different level if you get into the government space for that. Correct. And have, for instance, like with GSA accounts, to elevate your business. But if we don't even know that exists, because our counterparts aren't even sharing those opportunities with us. When I say sharing, one, the knowledge of the opportunities, two, how do you get involved and built up to even compete? You can't just say, oh, go play rugby. And I never played rugby before. And you're not even giving me access to the right shield, helmet, and all that. But, I gave you access. And that's what this is about. Integration, access, but equity seems to be elusive.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I had an opportunity to talk to an educator who was trying to prep underprivileged children for standardized testing, and they were sharing with me their challenge, because there are some questions on the standardized test that underprivileged children have no clue about. And his simple example was, you know, the average person or a middle class people know that any movie that starts before 7 o'clock or starts before 5 o'clock is considered a matinee. And that was one of the questions on the standardized test. And, you know, kids who had never really experienced going to the movie at all had no idea. So like you said, you know, the exposure to it all, and then you know, that's that twofold responsibility we have, you know, the exposure component. And then once you get that exposure, you know, you got to have that access to it. So yeah, it's very important to have a lot of different wheels in motion in order to make it work. But that, like you said, that equity is always has been a struggle, and I foresee it as continuing to be for our people.
That is the part I definitely agree with there. That's where we go back to really the beginning point that you asked, Bold, as far as our thoughts on these three pillars that we've come up with. And that's where I say, you know, that it really comes down to us, you know, owning the house that we want to participate in. And because the times have changed to where, again, talking about the first two, integration and accessibility. We have accessibility to knowledge. I mean, we're in 2022. If you want to learn, coding, you might have to spend more time than the average person, but you can learn coding. It's like, for instance, I think all of us saw The Pursuit of Happiness, Will Smith movie. I forgot the brother's name that he was depicting, but you know, based on that true story, I mean, he he wasn't raised and given the exposure for sales and sales techniques, but he studied, he had a method, and he rose to the top and impressed, you know, those in the executive room. And that's what I'm saying is that and again, our ancestors, you know, kind of debunk what we're up against. I mean, we have millionaires in our history. We have people who overcame major trials and tribulations to be successful. And I'm not talking just escape slavery. I'm talking about actually built a school, had a $1 million business. And so if we can't do that in our own lanes collectively as a Black unit, and we have access to YouTube, you can go into a seminar if you want to, and you're the only person of color in there. No one's going to look at you funny, and no one's going to say, whoa, you can't come in here. You need to go in the back. You know, I mean, we have access. We have capabilities to get into rooms that you can get into in this day and age. It's just a matter of mentality. And unfortunately, our mentality sometimes in our communities, in our culture, in certain regions, demographically, we are the ones that are holding the glass ceiling above our head. I mean, what was the different word? I think it was a different word episode when he talked about the jar with no lid. You know, the fleas just kept jumping and hitting the cells at the lid. But one day the owner took the lid off, but they just stopped jumping because they thought they'd hit their head. They never knew there's no lid. And so the point is that we have a no lid situation here with all the technology and knowledge that is out there to be gained, but we're not developing a culture. We're not developing organizations, structures that are built to go after that as a team, because we cannot do this one at a time.
So are you saying with that particular position, are you saying that we actually, let me put it like this, should we be seeking equity with your comment, or should we be creating equity? Because if I have access, then that means I'm the captain of my own ship. Right? That means I'm going into the situation and saying, okay, now that I have the access, I need to do the inputs. Because you talked about something earlier. You said that the equity piece is elusive. equity is elusive because equity is twofold. Equity has inputs and outputs. And so you can't have equity if you're only doing the inputs. And I think that's why a majority of the people of color struggle with equity, because we work hard. Matter of fact, all of us know when we get into corporate America, you got to work. You got to be twice as better as your counterparts. You already know that. We already know we got to be twice as loyal. We got to be committed. We got to, I work late. Yeah, I work on Saturday. Yeah, I'm flexible. Yeah, I'm accepting. I got to accept everybody else's culture, everybody else's mores, and everybody else's values. On top of that, I've got to put all my culture. I got to hide it up under my, my persona, and make sure I'm doing the right thing and in the right places. All the while doing all this input. Yet, when I look for the outputs, the equity, everybody else is getting the promotions. Everybody else is getting the special client meetings or etc. So it sounds like what you're telling me is, which I agree, that now that we have equity, we should not be looking for equity. We should be creating it. Being that person, being that loyal employee, standing out, being 2 or 3 times better than is that what you're saying?
In some manner, yes. You bring up some good points that I probably would even add flavor to, because when we have the standard, saying that we have to be 2 to 3 times better than our counterparts, the places that the places that's not required are in rooms that look very similar to us. So, for instance, when you go to a traditional school, you went to UCF, I went to Georgia Tech. In order to stand out, you had to be, as you say, 2 times better and 3 times better, whatever, to essentially stand out. But when we go to an HBCU, being you is good enough. Matter of fact, you're elevated because you're being your culture. You don't have to seem like you are shadowing some things in order to fit in. So I just bring that point. So, like, for instance, even in corporate America, I experienced a lot of opportunity because I had people in the room that looked like me and vouched for me, or either, some of that networking piece came into play. When you have rooms that are equitable in their demographics, but here in the South, that is different. And that's where that analogy, that 2 to 3 times greater factor has to come into play, because we're trying to, as your question, now going back to your question, because we're trying to play in arenas that don't look like us. So yes, in order to in order to get equity or gain equity, we have to develop our own strategies for equity. And sometimes, just like HBCUs, that looks like us. And so, as I said before, is that if we're going to rah-rah, HBCUs and rah-rah, certain things like be black, eat black, and shop black and all that, but we're afraid to collectively build our own institutions, our own homes, our own advocacy groups, then isn't that contradictory? Because for equity, in most cases, we need to have our own structure, and we have to be okay with saying black, not because the sound bites of Black Lives Matter, or not the sound bites of I'm woke, or not the sound bites of I'm repping the HBCU. Everybody is okay with that to a degree. Probably not Black Lives Matter, right? That hasn't hit everybody's ears as pleasantly, right? But being woke, even our counterparts are talking about they woke. They bro in us just like we bro in each other. Everybody's a bro now. In HBCUs, we're seeing corporate America swinging to sponsor HBCUs and things of that nature, put money in HBCUs. So that sounds okay. But as soon as we talk about a black movement to gain equity, such as Black Lives Matter, such as, said it before, a black chamber, when we start talking about that, even some of us back off of black. There's the problem. Do we even want equity? Are we, pretty much using the woke term, are we asleep that we're not even gaining equity where we are? playing in the house that has provided accessibility and integration. That's where I am, and I'm sorry if I didn't answer your question directly, but I think yes, we have to create our own equity.
Yeah, I think you did. I think you did. Now you added a few caveats that actually kind of broaden that conversation, because when you first mentioned that equity was elusive, I was only thinking in its application, or on the workplace or what have you. But then it is also elusive in where it's actually practiced, rather behind doors or up front, like you said when you were in DC. You saw a whole lot more people like you, which could open more doors, which gave you more access from these people in leadership. In the South, it is very, very common to see individuals that are younger than you with less education and experience who are giving supervisory positions. And so I think in the certain spots in the South, Atlanta, okay, we already know. Tallahassee, we good. Jacksonville, we good. But it's almost like 2 hours that way, 3
All
hours
you got
that
to do,
way.
brother, I don't mean to interject, but I'm going to clarify that point. All you got to do is look at a political map, and you can see where the problems are.
That's true.
South Georgia is mostly red, and those rural areas is red. That's where we have a problem on both sides of the fence, whether our counterparts, white America, European American, or either the African American side, the black side. Those particular units, both are shell-shocked in a way. We're shell-shocked to even talk about black in some arenas down here in the South. But like you said, Jacksonville, Atlanta, Savannah, Augusta, etc., everybody else can talk black. But us, I don't understand why not. And that's where we have a limiting factor to even gaining traction towards an equitable situation when it comes to, in the case of business or social injustice. Mm-hmm. Because, like, for instance, with why are we still arguing for protesting and marching still for KJ? I mean,
because just
no, not to challenge it. I'm sorry, not to challenge it, but just that's the shell shock factor. Right. We haven't pulled any strings that get their attention. I told you we've been protesting since the 50s, 60s, so they're good with that. They know you got to go to work at some point, so that's not going to pull their strings.
Yeah, that's why I'm gonna.
The boy, I'm sorry. Let me wrap that up then. This point here, so you can jump right in. So sorry. The main thing that we learned from the boycotting system with the Montgomery bus boycott was that when you hit counterparts in the pocket, that's where you get their attention. And I would just always say, I've said this in my household, is that when the KJ incident happened, nobody stopped playing football. Nobody stopped going to football games. Nobody stopped supporting Lowndes, if you will. If you had a problem with what Lowndes was doing, then why didn't you pull your equity out of Lowndes? Lowndes had no reason to stop what they were doing as far as listening to you.
We already know why. Because we hang the success of our future on athletics and music.
Absolutely.
Anything we don't trust politics. We don't trust religion. We don't trust social customs and systems. If you ain't the man on the court or on a football field or on a baseball diamond, and then, or if you do go to college, we hope you graduate. We hope you don't get there. You know the conversations we have from the people. You don't get up there. Like, okay.
That's what I was talking about earlier. Right.
Those that graduate is like, all right. There's a handful of us out here that's got this access, but the majority of us don't know what we're missing. But at the same time, if we even had the opportunity to have equity, 9 times out of 10, like you said, we wouldn't take advantage of it. So do we need to take equity off the table?
I mean, we've already done that in most cases. You're right. Do we even take it off? We're asking the question too late, brother. It's already been taken off the table, and it's funny and it's real too. It's been taken off the table. Thank you, Shamanti, for the agreement there. You know what I probably said earlier, but the thing about it is, brother, is what I'm saying is that culturally we are not even in that fight. for equity.
So
We're
why
not
do we
in
get?
a fight. There are too
So
many
why-
stats out there from social injustice, education. I mean, it's so much business. I mean, all kind of stats talk against, our improvement in certain areas. Even if you just look at Lowndes County, which I'm always going to focus on with all my points. When you look at Lowndes County, Valdosta, whichever, how wide you want to go. I mean, because it's scary even if you go actually wider than the county.
It is.
Because Lanier
It is.
County, what is it, Echoes and Brooks County
Keep
look
going east.
worse than us.
Keep going east.
Right. Yeah.
Southeast.
Hey, and what did I say a few minutes earlier? Look at the political map.
Yeah.
That's why our plight is of concern. It's in the gutter because politically there is nothing that is trying to elevate the Black culture when you're talking about rural zones. And primarily business, you don't see much Black business gaining traction from when you were talking about equity, from the capacity that our counterparts' businesses succeed and ours. I was just asking on Facebook now, maybe y'all can help me. Maybe the crowd can help me. Shamanti, maybe what happened to, is there something going on with Sultry's on Baytree? I'm sorry, Edward, you probably wouldn't even know. You know where Sultry's is, Suzette?
I do,
Do
but
you
I can't speak to what's going on with them. But I know that a lot of African American businesses in the past have had to go through a lot of red tape, when it came to extra stuff that might be beneficial to their businesses, especially in the restaurant world, such as red tape in getting liquor license or, zoning issues. Like, it was always something. And eventually, you can only get hit so many times with fees and setbacks until, you have to fold. But, back to your question about equity, should we chase it or should we create it? It just kind of depends on, as you guys have already spoke to, where you are geographically, as well as where you are in the process. You know what I'm saying? Some arenas, you just will not enter in because it's a secret society, and especially living in these towns, southern towns, there's already old money and monopoly that exists for decades and decades and decades. And if you are not coming in as a heavy hitter, you're not going to be a part of that community. Just not. So it just kind of depends on what is your goal. What is your goal? And unfortunately, we have not unified ourselves enough to even enter into that arena at this point.
Do we want it?
I definitely think not necessarily want it in terms as in building equality in that circle, but just an opportunity to start off with enough equity to pull out on your own. You know what I'm saying? Because nothing from nothing leaves nothing. So you got to get in and start somewhere. And once you be able to create and build that wealth, back to our blueprint, once you start establishing that first leg of generational wealth, then you'll have something to work with. But unfortunately, a lot of people caught up in the South haven't had that first leg of generational wealth yet. So of course you can't sit at the table when you have nothing, to bring to the table. You got to pay to play, unfortunately. So, no, it's no, you can't, you have to buy into equity. You have to buy into it. And if you have nothing to play with, you're not getting in that arena. It's just not happening.
Well, that's one piece I think that the majority of our people don't understand, and that buying into equity. The pure definition of equity is the return of a shareholder's investment. So what we really have to understand is, like you just said, and Black, he also referred to this, is that we have to make sure that when we get these opportunities, we've got to be intentional, really intentional about making sure that we're creating equity, not just for ourselves, but for those that are behind us. That's something that I experienced when I was at Georgia Power. When I first, what was it, like 05, 06, when I first started working there. And a lot of people know that Georgia Power is under a good old boy system. Everybody knows it. All over Georgia, there's always one or two in an entire operation that's of color. That's not something that's debated. I got an opportunity to work at Georgia Power because of the equity that my mother and the other few blacks took advantage of while they were there. Because my mom worked at Georgia Power and everybody else who wrote my recommendation letter were black, they all were stellar employees. They all were union reps or foremans or whatever. They had worked their way up. What I'm trying to say is that is a primary example of what we need to do with the equity with the people who are already in position. I think our intention, our action step when we get to the workplace is to connect with our own. But we can't connect with everybody just got the skin. We've got to have these conversations. We've got to, have these sit downs. We've got to be able to vet them a little bit to find out who came to this job seeking to create equity. I think that's one good way of how we can start creating this network of individuals that are in the workplace who what happened to Black, who may end up being their supervisor, may end up being their team lead, may end up being their their VP. But because we've had these connections, because they know me, because they know what it is I'm looking for or what I'm working towards, they can help create that equity because we were intentional about the inputs. Remember I told about the inputs earlier? About being loyal, being hardworking, being dependable and all that other stuff. I think we have misinterpreted what equity meant. I think we went into it thinking that they were going to give us something that was balanced. Instead of us reading the definition saying, I need to invest first. And after my investment is being recognized and, I'm experiencing the compound rule of 72 in the workplace, then at that point, then I can get access to these other higher positions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Am I wrong? Did I miss something? Did that make sense?
You're absolutely right. And also we have to realize that, and how I live my life is you have to be mindful. So you cannot be guilty of the same thing offenses that you're accusing someone else of being. And what I mean when I say that is, you can't accuse somebody of having a sense of entitlement, even though they do. We've seen it all the time when you want some level of a sense of entitlement too. So, you have to buy in. And like you said, you also have to pay it forward, knowing that, I'm trying to enter into that arena. I'm trying to create some equity here, but not just for me and my generation, but the generations that follow me. Like, saying we're talking about in the blueprint here on the show, the Black and the Bold, we were talking about creating generational wealth, generational wealth. It doesn't just last for one particular generation. You want it to, really, in succession, generation after generation after generation. So, in order to do that, usually it's the first of the line, the martyrs at the first of the line who have to really, dig in hard and kind of establish that for the generations to follow.
Yeah. Well, what do you think is most important? Because we've been talking about equity, we've been talking about accessibility and all that stuff. I think equity is probably the most the hot topic for tonight. But when we talk about equity, how important is personal and brand equity when we're talking about us as Black people in society? How much should we be focusing on our own personal equity and our own brand equity? How important do y'all think?
It should be top in this day and age. It's top priority. Just because the way the world works right now, it's all about personal branding. It's all about personal branding. And if you want to tap into individual wealth and creating generational wealth, you have to create a brand for that. You know what I'm saying? And it's not a new concept. You know what I'm saying? You have the Rockefellers and you have all the different, millionaires, the Elon Musk's of the world and all of that stuff, and even the Oprah Winfrey's of the world, she worked on her brand. She has her own network. So I think that right now in the world that we live in, you have to create a brand. And I was very fortunate um, to um, to attend a seminar right here in our city at Valdosta State University, where one of the instructors there was talking to the college young adults about branding themselves, and I think that's so important. I think that's also going to help us reclaim some of the moral fiber that is decaying, because she was very intentional in telling them, when you're creating your brand, like everything you do, everything you say, and we know that your digital footprint, it doesn't go away. Once you put it out there, you can't retract it. So she was really, cautioning the next generation, be careful, with your brand, because it's so volatile. We live in the council culture now. So like one little, you know, mis mishap is going to, demolish your career. Could demolish your career. So yeah, I think we need to focus on branding, and then creating from that positive brand, um figure out a way to monetize it, and so you can create your own equity.
What you think, bro? Because I've got a follow up question, because I know when we go in the workplace or we go into the world, I'll just on the world stage, a lot of us are expecting equity because of what our ancestors dealt with, right? Right? All right. I don't know. Y'all. Okay, Dwayne nodding. Okay, I'm
I'm not. Yeah, my bad. Yeah.
Okay. So with that, seems like a lot of times a lot of us may walk around with that preconceived notion that we are owed equity, right? Would it be safe to say that some of us, a large majority of us, might think that way? Maybe.
Are you talking reparations?
Well, that
Yeah,
could be one.
what you mean by old equity, by the way? Yeah, what do you mean by
Well, I
that?
mean, you think about. I mean, every well, we're in Black History Month. What do we always hear when it's voting time? You got ancestors. They stood in the line and they died for you to have the right to vote, and they did this and they did that. Da, 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 da. And so now we got. It's almost like we have this. Oh, I gotta find the right word for this. I want to say it the right way. um, it's like we have this expectation, this unfounded expectation sometimes that people should treat us fairly, and when they don't, we try to put them on the front street and say, "Why are you doing?" Am I making sense?
I get you. I get
Well,
you.
I mean,
Okay.
I mentioned that earlier, that we have to be very careful about entitlement. We have to be very careful about that.
Entitlement, right? So again, and this just maybe to further expound on that point, what you all were talking about, about the brand, etc. Are we going into the workplace not understanding that those that are in power have already vetted our collective brand and personal equity, which is why we may not have the access and the equity and the things that we need, because the brand that we put out as a collective isn't a good one. So even though we may be individually an asset to that particular company, organization, whatever it may be, but because of how the rest of us help in shaping that branding, it in some form or fashion hinders those that may be trying to push past or push beyond, what I'm saying, that stigma that we deal with. Uh,
Well, gentlemen, I'm gonna jump on the bandwagon from previous shows, and you guys have already very strongly and very elegantly determined from the statistics that we as a people, we have a high percentage of good fathers. In our population, we have a high percentage of college educated people in our African American population, but unfortunately it's the small percentage of people who are visual, you know what I'm saying, who are in the limelight, who is painting a bad brand, in terms of fighting on TV, or we're always angry, we're always mad, we're always twerking, it's those visuals that is undermining the real brand that's out there, that Black excellence exists and exists in the volumes. But unfortunately, you don't see that on reality TV. You don't see that in the mainstream. You see um all the negative qualities of our people. So unfortunately, just a few percentage people are taking that little bit of percentage and really putting a stamp on our entire race. And that is not what the narrative really is.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think that is a huge stumbling block for us. I think that's what differentiates us from our forefathers and our ancestors, is that they understood that you know, changing of the narrative does depend heavily upon how we respond to the things that happen to us, which might be one of the reasons why when they were at those counters in those restaurants practicing nonviolence, things like being intentional about making sure that you force equity, inclusion, or integration, all that other stuff, to make sure that it's there, because we have to approach. I think we're going to have to approach our future the very same way they approached the future of Black people prior to the civil rights movement. I think we have to be that calculated and that intentional about making sure that the substratum of our community is founded upon the principles that are going to make sure that we have representation, integration, accessibility, all that stuff wherever we go. And I think that is the thing that we're missing, because our forefathers did not operate as individuals. We operated as a group, we operated as a people. And it did not matter if you were the CEO or the janitor. If you were Black, come on, man. Come on, man. That's just the connection that we had. So
Absolutely.
again, I think that's something that we're really going to have to focus on, is
Yeah.
being intentionally,
Mhm.
uh, I guess, on par with what it is that we want to do as a people,
Right.
which goes back to our famed blueprint. You know, that's copyrighted by Black and the Bold. So
Yeah.
I mean, you can't steal that. But
That's right.
yeah, that's why I think that blueprint is important and essential for
Yeah.
us, because I think that's going to be a real key piece in
Absolutely.
making sure.
And
Yeah,
in our planning call, we were talking about going way back, to our ancestors, talking about the kings and the queens, the lineage of all of that. That comes more responsibility than just the superficial titles of it all. It's about your very essence, your very being. How your calculated moves. You know what I'm saying? How you raise your children, how you groom them. For the future. So we definitely really have to take a look at the whole. It's not enough to just be very educated and very intentional in one part of the process. The entire process has to be calculated, because if you want to move forward, you know what I'm saying? And that's just with anything. You just can't leave little fragments behind, little breadcrumbs behind. You have to move the whole, people forward if you want to make any kind of lasting change.
that's where that integration comes from. If you think about generational integration, is what we've seen our friends do when their father were doctors and they would go to their father's doctor's office to do their summer intern. That's what you call generational integration. When you integrate them into the corporate world, you integrate them into certain environments, you give them that access. That's something that we need to make sure we do. One Shar said we need to make sure we get out of that crab mentality. One way you get rid of the crab mentality in our community is give us that integration and access. A lot of us, just like Tupac said, he said, just like the hungry people outside the home. First time we're gonna come, we're gonna knock, we're gonna be nice and, cordial about it. Hey, we hungry, we want something to eat. After I come knock on that door about 3, 4 times, and we can look around over your shoulder and see you got a table full of food, I'm gonna get access, and I'm not gonna be nice about it. Next time, what he said, we're gonna come through, busting through the door with the 4-4 blazing. You know what I'm saying? Like, ain't no more talking. And I think that's the mentality we need to take. We need to stop asking. Matter of fact, I don't even see the benefit of.
Practically, what does that mean though? because I have a thought on it. I have a thought. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You said the asking part?
No. No. The end part of that, as far as to just take it, because I get where he was coming from his context, but from an equity standpoint, which is the part that we're missing, I guess my stance is that we can, like I said, we can. Say what?
I see what you're saying.
Okay.
You look how we do that.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. Yeah. So sorry I didn't explain it right. And I'm just saying, because technically, let's frame that in a different manner, that yes, we need to basically do something instead of asking. Basically, if I take what he's saying, Tupac, that is, and that wisdom, that yes, we're asking, we're gonna sing about it, we're gonna protest about it, rah rah rah. But after a while, we see you just continuously progressing and eating at the table, the big food and all that. All right, at this point, now here's where I changed the narrative, though, is that I'm done asking. I'm done looking at growth in certain areas that are not the same in my areas that I'm concerned about. Well, at this point, I need to, in my case, create my own. And I'll again, I'm gonna keep going back to the business side, but specifically when it comes to entrepreneurship, that's exactly what's happening. We see more young people making business ideas as far as entrepreneurship. That sector is really what's exploding, especially here, in South Georgia. There's a running stat that I just looked up from the Boston College's analysis. It talks about the Black population having about a 20%, actually more than 20%, 26% entrepreneurship activity, compared to white America is roughly about 12% as far as creating businesses. We create businesses out the yin yang. That doesn't mean they're successful. So we're doing something, and you can see that here in Valdosta. That's why I asked about the Sultry thing. There are others that have blossomed, sort of died out, then fizzled. So we have obviously we're a cultured people. We are innovative people. We are people of the sun. I mean, so we have all these potential ideas for greatness, but the equity piece that I keep going back to is the evolution that we just need to cross over, that crest over the hill there, because our forefathers and those, especially all the way up to the civil rights movement, gained us integration. So that fight is, I'm gonna call it over in a sense, but so don't catch me on the words right now. But integration is feasible now. All right, we have integration. All right, accessibility. I dare argue that when it comes to knowledge and being able to get in certain places or gain information, I mean, a lot of policies that are in place, such as, I thought I was going to name it, but anyway, a lot of policies that are in place to where, the public has to know certain things, free press and et cetera. And then also the technology age has gained us accessibility to a lot of information. All right. Now we get into this age to where equity is the argument. I mean, we've been, like you said, that pretty much is the theme that we've landed on tonight. Equity is the problem. And again, now insert the Tupac mannerism that all the while I've been asking for integration, accessibility, and I've been asking for equity the whole while. We know it hasn't been the same. We can look around Valdosta for the last, 40 plus years, 30 plus years here. We can look around and nothing's changed. So equity is not even illustrated across Valdosta. We see that. And so at this point, with that Tupac narrative, what do we do? Do we, in this case, that's why practically we're not going to storm, the halls of City Hall or the chamber or anything like that. But our call to action really is, as you talked about before, Black, and I know Suzette has mentioned before also, is that we collectively work together and provide our own equity, because we have accessibility to other people that have gained knowledge. We have accessibility to other to partners that are doing just as well and want to share insight. We have all this, but we're not utilizing it because of, as Shara talked about, the crab mentality. So in my reference to what she's saying is that we need to intentionally work with those individuals that do not expose us to the crab mentality. I might need to be very specific with who I work with, but I'm going to build. And once we start building out from there, maybe these other people can start seeing, let me attach myself to this because, all right, we can do this. I just don't think that we're going to get there in South Georgia by continuing to ask and continuing to try to work through the systems that are in play and thinking that equity is going to happen when there is a constituency that they have to answer to. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to change, turn the Titanic anytime soon. I don't think that anything is going to change any sooner than what we can do in our own collective unit.
So you asked the question, what can we do? If I go back to the definition, I was trying to pull it up. If I go back to the definition that I gave about the inputs and outputs, my question would be, my answer would be to increase our level of investment. That's the only way. That's the only way we're going to be able to create an environment of equity when we get invested in our purpose on a collective level. Again, that would be nothing but a mirror to what our forefathers did. They were invested. They said, "Well, shoot, if that means we got to drive our car and carpool to take money out of their pocket to let them see we're serious, then we're going to be invested." Exactly. So the answer would be for our community to become invested in our own community.
In our own community, right?
That's one way, because then we'll know we'll begin to understand what the requirements of equity are, mm-hmm. And then at the same time we'll be able to see in real time the effects or the benefits that equity can bring to the table.
Right. Because that's the buy-in. That's the buy-in.
Yeah, exactly. The buy-in of it all. So again, we have to go back to making sure that we are invested, not just in our own 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 children, not just invested in your own home, not just invested in your own education, but we've got to begin to expand our level of investment. We've got to become, what do we call it? We've got to become diversified portfolio when it comes to our investments.
I like the drum roll.
I know that's pretty good.
We got to have that diversified.
I definitely agree with you with the buy-in. But then one of our queens on here, Ms. Shara, also said we need to create and support instead of competing. And I think that has been our Achilles heel for generations and generations. We constantly try to compete with one another. All the while we're self-destructing. We're self-destructing and self-sabotaging.
But we have to understand also, kind of tying that in with the entrepreneurial stats, that if we're creating businesses at a skyrocketing rate or 2 times factor than our counterparts, but then failing drastically in comparison, we have to take
I think so.
I don't disagree with that being a factor. Where I'm going is that we got to be careful about creating and supporting and even having healthy competition. I mean, McDonald's competes with Wendy's, but my point is that when we create and we rush to entrepreneurship and we talk about support Black and shop Black, when it's not necessarily practical 365, 24 hours out the day, and couple that with not being highly educated in the business that we say we're running, that to me is the source of failure. In addition to the competition that's negative, the crab in the barrel mentality. But I think a lot of our problem from the entrepreneurial world, in order to move this needle, is that we're not totally invested equity to get equity we need or create, but we're not totally invested in ourselves as far as the knowledge base to be successful in the lane that we're in. If we're going to talk entrepreneurship, which is what I'm using as an example, we're failing so much that in that arena, it's pretty clear that if we're not connected to a source of knowledge, that's where your source of failure is.
You're absolutely right. A part of in a part of having equity is not only getting equity, the buy-in, but you have to be able to sustain it, once you acquire it. So, a lot of times it's just well, most of the time, or all, I would even go as far as saying all of the time. It's not enough to just say you're a black owned business. Like, what is your standard? You know what I'm saying? You have to raise your standard to a level of excellence and continuously building, continuously trying to hit that next benchmark, that next, whatever the next level is for you in your business. You can't stay stagnant. Like when you open your doors, you're going to have to continue to create. And then, I have to go back with Shara, that support. One of the support components is showing somebody else the path that you took. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to hurt you to show or to share with some of your counterparts. Where did you go to find this loan? Who is your grant writer? Who is your accountant? Who is your finance person? And that's part of it too. That's a part of support. When you educate, to me, that's a part of support.
I agree with that. There's a brother, I forget his name, so forgive me, but maybe someone out there is familiar with the business for, I think it's Preferred Auto Detailing. I believe the brother that's on West Hill or the East Hill Avenue on the way out near the fairgrounds or old fairgrounds. But he owns a really nice detailing shop, but it looks like a warehouse as you're on Hill Avenue out there. But he services like clients that are coming in from Florida with, the Lamborghinis or the big trucks or just regular trucks and cars. But the brother's doing quite well. And one of the points I really wanted to align with that was that we can't believe that you can sustain your business through clientele that is just here locally. And that's where, again, when we talk about feasibility of a business idea, and again, this only links back to equity because, again, investing in ourselves in order to create equity. And so with that, I wouldn't put it past anybody that thinks they are going to be successful. Shara has her, publicity, business. I know she's not just counting on clients that are locally. So that's my whole point is that when we open up businesses, we have to really test ourselves to that feasibility factor so that equity can come and not rely on, oh, well, they don't support me. That's kind of where I'm tying it in is that there's only but so much support. I'm not going to eat Big Nicks every day. You know what I'm saying? So he has to do something I'm sure he's doing in order to market to clientele that's beyond Valdosta. I know he's doing that. That's why he's successful because he's not relying on just Dwayne Johnson to come sustain his household because I'm eating there every day. Mm-hmm. And so that's where we have to be accountable in our culture, in the business arena at least, is that we have to really invest in ourselves to be true to what we're trying to do. This whole 26% entrepreneurship creation is irrelevant if 2-3 years down the road you look closed every time someone passed by. I mean that there's something that's not right about that formula, and we keep circling back through the same process each time. And now changing gears to my whole stance, my soapbox is that where are our advocacy entities that claim to be business related for all of these businesses that cyclically fail? That's a problem. I mean, this was a national stat. So what is it from both sides that just continue to fail? And some of it is just turning a blind eye to those culturally that need assistance.
I think it's a level of ignorance, and I think it's also a level of our inability to collaborate.
Gotcha.
When we think about the creation, creating support instead of competing, I think one piece that we forget is being able to partner in business. You don't have to be two separate businesses to do business. We could be two individuals that are coupled together in the same business, knowing I can't do this without you because you know your specialty is here. It's just like if Black and I go into a business. He and I have been together so long. He knows that either one of us can get up and talk.
Right.
He knows that. He knows when it comes to going into a room that that's a fresh room, he'll probably send me because I'm the loud, gaudy, I'm the talkative one. I go around and touch and feel, yeah, hey, you know what I'm saying? But when we start talking about the logistics, when we get down to the ABCs of the situation, I might turn it over to D. And so I think if we start looking at business like that, instead of being in business with people, being in partnership, like I make the paper, I make the toilet tissue, you make the roll that go on. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how we support. That's another level of support of having that next leg of business that you need. And instead of trying to half do it yourself, partner with somebody that looks like you, has that same drive as you. That way, both of y'all are going in the same direction. Your equity is there, your investment is there. You know what I'm saying? The access is there. All that begins to come when we stop trying to, compete. And you can say we can have healthy competition.
Right.
But, bro, we at the bottom. What are we? 1% of the 1%? You know what I'm saying? Like we're at the bottom. We would do much better if we just partnered with people instead of
too many 1%.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. And so you got if we all we know this. We've heard that this housing market could crash, in the very near future. If there were some people, within our circles and our neighborhoods, that had the bread, instead of them trying to go do it themselves, you say, you know what? Let's start a conglomerate. Let's start let's start an all Black real estate company. And you know how we're gonna start it? We're gonna buy 3 properties, cash.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
I've thought that way
like that. And then what you do is you make that public to the community, and then you say, listen, we're looking for 5 mentees.
Mm-hmm.
At that particular point, what are we doing? We're giving them the
You're building equity.
Thank you. I was getting there. Those are kind of ways we can do that. And so I think I'm just saying, I think the more, and that goes back to what Black was saying, the more we begin to understand business, the more we increase our acumen to work beyond our own little circle of people. I think that's when we begin to take the equity and accessibility and all that by the horns and see an exponential move within our community, like we saw with our grandparents. How could our grandparents graduate to 4th grade, but when they died, they had property, they had houses, they had investments, they had all that stuff.
They left the next generation more than just debt when they died.
Exactly. Why? Because they invested in us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just my 2 cents. Shout out to OG Brother Thomas McIntyre. He said AC Corp and segregation. Yeah, well, segregation did play a big part in that. The segregation was definitely a separation. It also was an annihilation of information. So, yeah, you're right. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Integration destroyed the Black community. It did. And then he gonna say yo at the end. But I know we did post the actual link in the show for you all to call in. Listen, y'all, we're not expecting you all to show your face. You do not have to show your face. I mean, we want you to. I said we're not expecting.
I am. Come on, Queen. They think we can't show our face. Come on.
Yeah,
we was built for this. Come on.
Okay. All right, now don't let Suzette talk y'all up now that y'all don't want to show up.
I have all confidence in my queens. Okay. Whoever graces this podcast, they're gonna be well prepared. Thank you.
I would think that if anybody, like for instance, a lot of what Shara was talking about, a lot of one-liners that came in from Shamonte, even OG, even if you got on just to say whatever it is or reiterate what you've written, That's just an opportunity. We're not asking for you to be a co-host and stay on and all that. We promise we're not going to put you out in the wind. We're not going to ask you a tough question. Bold is going to be nice. And, we're not going to try to get in on you. We just want to see if we can get some other engagement styles on the show. So feel free to chime in, and then we'll let you go after you make your statement. Matter of fact, we can make that a promise. We just allow people to say, hey, what did Shara say? We have to do better and be better and can't expect to be treated differently if we weren't being the example. And that's all I had to say, guys. And then she gets on,
Yeah.
So Shara, I'm calling you out. My bad.
Yeah. And we are very I'm gonna have a very surreal moment right now, but we are a very blessed community to have like consistent supporters and consistent followers and viewers. So just let it be known, this year we want to see your face. We want to see all those loyal, dedicated followers, because we truly appreciate you chiming in and giving us, your point of view on things. That's the only way we're gonna move forward as a people, if everybody collectively, bring their excellence and their brilliance to the table, and then we're gonna move the pendulum forward.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
While we're waiting for those to log on, let's talk really quickly about Mr. Brian Flores.
Yep.
Brian Flores was the coach who had the interview for the head coaching job, and Bill Belichick called him by mistake or texted him by mistake and letting him know, like, congratulations, glad to hear, you got the job, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, did you mean to text Brian Flores or whatever that other coach's name was, Brian something? And it blew up in the sports world, and it immediately became a hot topic because it was a pure, undeniable example of what happens to Black people. Well, not just Black people, but people of color all over this world, with the facade of what they call the facade of opportunity. This young man was, he was there for, I think, a week. I think the head coach interviews are like a week long or something like that. He was there. He went through all the meetings. He did what he was supposed to do. They were talking great, giving him these cues and clues, like, he probably had a chance. And then he gets that off the wall text, pretty much spilling the beans. And so now he has sued the NFL for an act of discrimination. And I think it's rightfully so. But now there's a lot of information out there on the blogs and on the sports talk radio that he could have possibly just shot himself in the foot. It sounds like a lot of the rhetoric they talked with Colin Kaepernick when it came with the things that he did, and they immediately say he shot himself in the foot. It seems like any athlete that does anything unsavory, they always say their career is probably in question.
But is it unsavory though to call somebody out on a discrimination issue? Is that considered unsavory?
Absolutely not. Not from my perspective, because I'm a man of color and I've experienced that before. But when you look at it from the other side, they experience that, but I don't think they take it as to heart because of the repetition of opportunity they receive. So I don't think it really bothers them that much. It bothers us because our opportunities to get to that level a lot of times are slim to none, or few and far between. So, but at this particular point, he actually was hired as a assistant defensive coordinator while his case is pending. And so, is this another case of integration, accessibility, and equity being tinkered with? In the sheer process of trying to get a promotion as a football coach. We already know, the level of demographic between people of color and the majority that are head coaches, across the board in professional sports, but especially in NFL. There's only two present head coaches that are Black, I think. We've got Pittsburgh, and I think it's another one. Cincinnati or not Cincinnati. But I can't remember. I think it's only like 2, maybe 3, maybe. But it is very, very few with black people or black coaches in this. So is this another issue?
No, let me even put it in perspective. So I just Googled the number of black head coaches in the NFL, and as of January 21st this year, which states a couple of weeks after the close of the NFL's regular season, there's just one black head coach and one Latino head coach left in the league. Mike Tomlin is that black head coach that you're talking about.
Because what's his name with the Bears? Lovey.
Yeah,
he's not there
with Texans. Defensive coach.
Yeah, only one now.
He's just basically.
So what's your question? What's your question, Brother Black?
Is this a? I'm gonna have to reframe, y'all. Oh, here we go. Is this another Sha'Carri incident? Is this another opportunity for us to cry that we're not getting equity? Or are we not taking advantage of our opportunities? Beautiful.
I just want to, I said no only because as far as, I didn't hear your question out and I immediately answered. It's like, you're on a game show and you buzz in too early and I missed the whole context of the question. I only jumped in.
You headed in the right direction, trust.
I don't know. Just hear me out, though. Hear me out. I just wanted to say no because I do not dare use Miss Richardson as an example for anything at this point. So I don't want to give her the credit that was this a Sha'Carri, crying before. No, she does not get any endorsement from this end. No,
I am totally on board with Brother Black tonight. I am on board with that because it's really apples and oranges here. You know what I'm saying? Miss Richardson, she was she was guilty of what she was accused of. This gentleman that we're referring to now, he had an awesome track record. You know what I'm saying? He proved himself in his field to rise above, and yet still he was, ended up on the discriminatory end of the stick. So I mean, I'm gonna have to ride with I'm riding with brother Black tonight. It's no comparison there. You know what I'm saying? You're talking about somebody who was falsely discriminated against versus somebody who was clearly guilty in their accusations, and it's apple and oranges there. But I do think that he should have blown the whistle. We live in a day and age now where technology is not going to let you sweep it under the rug like the good old days. They're going to put you straight on blast. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing that, some things need to be, the light need to be shone on it, because some people don't think that this discrimination and, institutionalized segregation and all that exists. And it really does. It still does.
All right, so I'm going to push back, but I'm going to push back in a different way. So how is that different?
First of all, remember, I answered too early. So I didn't even hear your question. So you don't even have to reframe it. Just restate it.
No. I wasn't going to reframe it or restate it. I just wanted to ask a different question because I wasn't saying it as if I was trying to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. I wasn't trying to do that. What I was trying to paint was the actual overall, the overwhelming picture. Okay. The fact that whether it was a direct personal equity or personal brand fault, or was it a community or a conglomerate personal fault for for.
No, I don't care. Honestly, I really don't care how you package it. I'm riding with Brother Black tonight. You can't compare the two. That's going back to the twofold responsibility in terms of chasing equity. You know what I'm saying? There is a twofold responsibility. You have to make sure that you're qualified to even be in the arena. Miss Richardson, she disqualified herself, and then later on, acted out very terribly. But this gentleman here, from what I have researched on him, he had an excellent record. You know what I'm saying? He was just a victim of the system discriminating against him because of what he looked like.
That's my point.
Yeah,
That was my point.
I see where y'all going now as far as what you were asking, and I think it is similar because I think you referred to Colin Kaepernick in the similarity that the league is very unique, just like South Georgia, Valdosta is very unique. Be careful what you say if you cannot stand behind it or deal with the consequences. So that's why it's special to have, and I'll give ourselves a little plug here. That's why it's special to have a platform like this for the Black and the Bold and featuring the beautiful on it, because we're saying some things that we can stand behind. We don't mind saying in public ear. At the same time, I'm sure, you all feel, your various ways, but when I say something and I post something, I don't, the consequence, okay, you're going to argue with me because I'm stating facts. And so that's a difficult argument for someone to speak against. But as far as the consequences goes, the NFL is different because what they have, and I told you before, we do have brother OG in the waiting room right quick, and I'm get him in as we wrap this comment up or questions here. But remember what I said about an hour or so plus ago is that you have to be careful if you're in a room that doesn't look like you, i.e. a string of coaches, i.e. of the NFL Players Association, whatever. But when you speak out in a room that doesn't look like you, be careful for the backlash, because blackballing exists. Locking you out of opportunities exists. And that's what I said before. A lot of people here in this community are cautious about when you say, oh, it was unfair because I'm blackety black, or because I want to create something blackety black. Oh, how is that going to affect, my outcome? What are going to be the consequences? Because we have been shell shocked through history that there are consequences. And so it's a hard ship to drive if we're going to talk about equity. And I think Mr. Flores is experiencing that, is that he no longer is a head coach. He got in some way blackballed in the sense of coaching interviews and pretty much got funneled into now senior defensive assistant, whatever it is, and head coach of linebackers, whatever, but it's not head coaching. Let me know when y'all ready to bring brother OG in. He's setting up there, and I see he's about ready whenever we want to let him in.
Yeah, bring him on in. We're ready.
Yeah, well, you bring him on in. What's going on, brother?
Appreciate you being the brave one.
People. Yeah. I'm gonna jump in there.
This is going to become the Black, the Bold, the Beautiful, and the Brave.
Had to put on my hat because I was really the bald.
I got that one, bro. I got that locked down.
Yeah, I don't lie. I'm glad I'm tall. I don't want to see what's up there or what's not.
What's your thoughts, brother?
Yeah, I was listening to what you guys were saying earlier. And I know me and Mac have had a little bit of these conversations. I think that we have issues on multiple levels. Even what I see is even the successful business owners aren't conducting business properly. And on a lower level, I just had a discussion with a guy today who did excellent work on my house as far as the plumbing. Went up under the house. I mean, he dug up the yard, went and got all new stuff, everything. It worked better than before. And I asked him for an invoice. And I've been trying to track this dude down for a week about an invoice. Finally got to him today, and he says, hey, man, you don't really need no invoice or nothing. Anybody can just write anything up. And I'm like, here we go, bootleg again.
Oh.
But it's not, that's a simple example. But I know people today that are running businesses and it's not in an LLC. It's not in a trust. It's not protected properly. They don't understand the value of having that done as far as protecting themselves. We were never really supposed to conduct business as ourselves within the United States Corporation. I mean, I know to some people that sounds a little bit off, but if you want to be a business person in the United States, you need to know what business you're dealing with. The United States is a corporation. You have to deal with the corporation as a corporation and not yourself. And that's a next level discussion. Like I said, Mac and I have talked a little bit about this, and I would like to help people get to that level. Or everyone that thinks that they're successful are so vulnerable and everybody knows everything that they're doing. It's ridiculous. We're operating in an environment or a structure that we did not design, and actually it wasn't for us. And we need to know that and know how to maneuver within someone else's house.
Yep. That's kind of what I was saying.
Use that house example earlier.
Yeah, it's important. Even we don't look at death as a business transaction or opportunity. Even in our community, if we do have a life insurance policy, and most of us don't, but if we do, it's not the correct type of policy. Our friends on the other side of the fence have whole life insurance and they give us term.
Yeah.
But we don't know the benefits while we're alive of whole life insurance. And then we don't know that whole life insurance should never pay to an individual.
Right. Exactly.
It's a tool of wealth. It is not wealth. And money has nothing to do with wealth. It's a tool for wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are some problems that, I think down the line, we all need to get together and discuss and draw it out. When I was in school at VSU, this was some years ago, Professor Muncie, he was one of the highest paid guys out there at VSU. And I was in the class. And of course, even back then, I was still an OG compared to everybody else. 18, 19. And, he said, everybody wants to be a millionaire, raise your hand. And everybody raised their hand except me. He was like, okay, OG, what's the problem? Why don't you want to be a millionaire? And I was like, it's not a big deal. There's so many millionaires around, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. Just do what they did and you'll be a millionaire. I said, the only reason why I'm not a millionaire is because I don't have the desire. I said, but there's no reason why anybody couldn't be a millionaire. You don't have to run around and try and reinvent the wheel.
Right.
That's right.
Most people don't even understand what is required to be a millionaire and the responsibility, the consequences that even come with that. Most people wouldn't even be able to survive with the pressures of being a millionaire. And then on top of that, you've chased the wrong carrot because now you're still unhappy, you're still stressful, etc. Why is it that you want to be a millionaire, or even that's not even really the end goal that you really need to be engaging in? Some people just want more time, more safety, more isolation, and just to be by yourself. Go to the beach.
Yeah, and that's another thing. What are your goals?
Right.
If you want to transfer wealth, that's a different bag. Totally different bag than going on vacation when you feel like it.
We got enough millionaires in the NFL. That don't mean they're successful after the league time is over.
Yeah,
that's right.
But they say most millionaires aren't millionaires within the next 3 to 5 years. They don't know how to maintain their wealth.
There you go.
Yep. It's like the curse of the lotto. Look how lotto destroys people's lives. They don't know nothing about money.
Mm-hmm.
Can't handle it. Money it kills people.
I don't play the lotto, but I wouldn't mind having that problem. You know what I'm saying? How do I address you? Do I address you OG Thomas, Mr. OG, Professor OG? How should I address you?
You address him as king.
Kingship.
I personally don't have a problem with that. I address everybody worthy of the title.
Just Thomas or OG Thomas or OG
Thomas. Okay.
That's
while we have you on here, OG Thomas, could you answer our moniker question for us? So integration, accessibility, and equity. Do you think it's possible to have all three of those at the same time?
Well, it is, but I don't know if that's desirable. I mean, you can always do what you want to do, you know, and it depends on if you're trying to do it in the capacity of a community, or are you solo? You can do what you want to solo, but when you talk about community, you have to segregate. The strongest communities are not integrated. And that's just understanding and knowing something about history. I tell people, give me a culture or people that have integrated and they're successful. You can't find anybody.
That was the mask of integration. But you notice that a lot of times, even with the agents that were with the railroad, you know, during that time when they were laying it across the country, they weren't even pressing to be integrated. They wanted to remain isolated, to be amongst themselves.
Yeah.
They, I think those in power knew that to make us the perpetual vulnerable class was to push us through integration to ultimately weaken and handicap what we already had. So you're right. I totally agree with that. I totally agree. Totally agree.
And they keep us down and not these other ethnicities because we own the land. We just don't know it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
They don't care about suppressing the Chinese or anybody else that comes over there. They can be as successful as they want because they're in the same position that the mislabeled white people are. They're on somebody else's land.
Mm-hmm.
They let us understand that this is our property and how property is inherited. Just because you stole it, it doesn't matter how long you have something stolen. It's still not yours.
Ownership, yeah.
It does not change. It does not change. That's not how it works. And no one should be able to tell any of us anything different.
Well, that goes back. I think we made a comment earlier about that, holding that other side accountable. I think that's going to be the difficult part because I think all of us were aware of that situation that happened over in California with the family. I think it was California, where the family, their oceanfront property was taken from them like 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they just recently gave it back to them.
Eminent domain.
Right. When you talk about that, they took it from it. That's what it was. Eminent domain that took it from them, and they gave it back. When you talk about that return of ownership, that ownership never goes anywhere. I think that's an important piece for us to understand because a lot of us focus on our history being across the water, when in fact the majority of our history is right here.
Yes. We are not from overseas.
Exactly.
We're from here.
Exactly. But I think the fact that our miseducation of our own history kind of misappropriates our energy, or misappropriates our desires and passions, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because
it affects our business.
Right. Exactly. So I think that's, I don't know. What is your suggestion that we do moving forward within our community? Or what can we teach our children? What can we teach our counterparts about the importance of that integration, accessibility, and equity? I mean, is that something we should look forward to, or should we redefine it, or should we just continue to pursue it, in its purest form?
I don't think that we should redefine it because, it is what it is, and like like I was saying, in jurisprudence, and ultimate law cannot be redefined. It is what it is. And I think we need to give the people the truth. Everybody's not going to be able to swallow it. You can never save everybody. Right. But if we can teach the people that are willing to and capable of absorbing that type of information and applying it, they'll save everybody else.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's only going to be a few of us. I know that it's a goal and it's in our hearts to try and go out and help as many people as we can. But just like we've seen last year, and I won't bring up the instance, but I watched and I was shaking my head when we actually accomplished a goal in the city. And I looked at it as a ton of wasted energy.
Yeah.
I hear you.
It was a hollow victory that I wanted nothing to do with. Because if I participate in something where I'm contributing my energy to something that you shouldn't be doing, then I'm no better than you or anybody else.
True.
You know, we waste so much time. So much time. I could care less what statue is sitting downtown. I'll worry about that when I own the block. I can do what I want to with the statue. I can paint it black.
Another point. You don't have enough stakeholdership to even make that fight, that case.
Right. Why are you worried about that?
You don't have the right chess pieces on the board to even make that decision.
Yeah, we got to pick our battles, and we got to understand what we're fighting for, and it's got to be worth it because we do not have unlimited resources.
Right. That part.
That's some show enough good information right there, my brother. I'm telling you, I know that we got a long ways to go, but I think if we would have utilized a few of those points, I think we definitely would start seeing some progress. So I really appreciate it. We got to make sure, next week, log in, get your phone ready. We want to see your face again. that constant, that weekly interaction, within the family. Well, we appreciate you, my brother. It's always a pleasure for you to be with us, OG. Really
thank you for having me here. I feel blessed. I'm gonna sleep good tonight.
All right, brother.
All right, y'all.
Y'all have anything else before we let OG go?
No, appreciate King OG for coming on.
King OG, don't listen to him.
See you next week, same time, same channel.
Same bat channel. Yeah. Okay.
So, appreciate you, my brother. You have a good one. All right, man. All right, fam. Do we have anybody else before we get ready to turn this corner?
My beautiful
Shamonte,
y'all don't want to come on. Now,
Shamonte's
ladies, I'm giving y'all 1 week to get yourself together. Now, I need some representation. We need some representation.
Shout out to Mon, the Being Always Win podcast. Bruh, I need to holler at your inbox, man. I might need you this weekend. So we definitely appreciate one of our other partners. There's another creator has a podcast, but we're definitely looking to
collaborate
and make sure that we can make this move together. So we're gonna practice what we preach over here. So look out for that DM or that email or whatever, Mon. All right. Do we have anything else before we get ready to get out of here?
Man, we had a packed show tonight and got some good information. And, if we don't make any traction, it's not because we were misinformed. We definitely have the information and the tools and the resources to make some traction.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's an opportunity for perhaps an ongoing conversation, maybe, revisit it. I don't know however frequent we need to, but maybe once a month, or if it's next week and the week after, whatever. But this is an ongoing conversation. A couple of people just chimed in. They missed it tonight. Obviously, they have to look at the replay. But in the sense of what we're talking about, as far as this equity, accessibility, and integration, I feel that there's a lot of examples that are going to come up that relate to that. And I think that as we continue to make moves, we're going to see that there's an opportunity to help provide advice or just insight into understanding as a Black culture, and even our viewers, to help a lot of us understand why certain things happen. When we have additional viewers that chime in, like OG, he's adding a different perspective, an additional perspective, because all of us sit in different arenas. And so he's able to see things from his vantage point because of where he sits. And that's very valuable to our conversation.
It is. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I think one thing we have to do, I agree with all of y'all. I definitely think we're going to have to address our entitlement, our spirit of entitlement. I don't think we can no longer hide or hang on the achievements of our forefathers or the work or the sacrifices that they've done. I think we're going to have to find an opportunity or find an open door where we can walk in ourselves and create something for the generations behind us. So, like I said, this is definitely something we're going to have to continuously revisit from time to time, so we can constantly kind of wash kind of rinse out our entitlement from time to time, knowing we still got to put some work in. That it definitely does require some investment.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is definitely not a topic only geared to Black History Month. We definitely have to have the fire burning so that we can move forward, as a people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
This might be one where coming in from this eye, looking at from those three pillars, each situation can be examined from those pillars.
Yeah. What did you say earlier, Black? We can further assess the elusiveness of
Yeah.
equity, from by case. So
Yeah,
we'll definitely do that.
Hey, I'm still echo my boy Eric Benson. I'm gonna give him the. I told him I'm gonna end up using his classic cliche here, but if we cannot get equity in the house that we're in, we need to build our own house.
Hey, I don't have nothing to say behind that, my friend.
I don't either.
Swipe your hands of that, huh?
That is the truth. If nobody else said it, good Lord.
You can drop the mic on that one.
Oh yeah, definitely drop it. But man, I appreciate you, man. Thank you all so much for what you've done. I just want to pause and publicly appreciate my two co-hosts, Black and the Beautiful. I really appreciate you all tonight. Thank you for your sacrifices. Thank you for all your input. Beautiful. You're trying to make sure you're dressing nice. So next week I need to step my game up. If you're gonna be dressing that Sunday morning now, good Lord, I need to fix myself. But I really appreciate y'all. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for your support, and let's go get this bag together. So I love y'all. Thank y'all for being a part of the show. At this particular time, we're getting ready to transition and get ready to get out of here. And of course, I always have my few moments of motivation. So today I want to talk about mindset. I want to talk about the mindset. I think it's important for us to really, really, really hold on to the fact that it's where our mind exists. Where our mind exists is where our future lies. Mindset means, or the definition is, the driving force in the quest for success and achievement. A mindset that combines discipline, strength, confidence, and ambition is a powerful mindset. This can achieve anything it sets its sights on. If you look at the word mindset, it really is an action, somewhat of an action word, because what you're really doing is you're setting your mind on a certain disposition. Whatever you set your mind, you're basically telling yourself that I'm going to force my life to fit into the dream that I have for myself. So if that means I've got to meditate, if that means that I have to write, if that means I have to journal, if that means that I have to retrain my brain by, saying positive things 3 times a day, if that means that I got to focus on my long-term vision, if that means I got to do the dirty work myself, if that means I've got to sit down and listen to the OG or listen to some of our individuals in the community that can give me some trusted perspectives, that's what I got to do. Because I have decided, and I hope you have too, that this year you're going to set your mind on your future. This year I'm setting my mind on my family. I'm setting it on my future. I'm setting it on my faith. But I'm also setting it on my destiny. I'm working hard. I'm working on my attitude. I'm working on my laziness. I'm working on my procrastination. I'm working on how I like to tell little white lies. I'm working on it all. Because at the end of the day, I set my mind on something. What did I set my mind on? Success, achievement, discipline, strength, confidence, and ambition. Why? Because I read a scripture one time that said, "Let this mind be in you that was also in your Savior Christ." Until you change your mind, your future will stay the same. Change your mind, and your destiny will change along with it. Love y'all. See y'all next week. Change your mind. Set it on something great, because we're about to go up together. I love y'all. Peace.